I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sandra kept whispering as she lay on the Family Feud stage, embarrassed that she'd ruined the show. But Steve Harvey knelt beside her and said 5 words that would echo in her heart for years. You're going to be okay. He had no idea that helping her up from that floor would become a 7-year journey that would transform not just her life, but the lives of countless others. This isn't just a story about a television moment gone wrong. It's about what happens when genuine compassion meets desperate need, and how one man's refusal to let the cameras define his character would create a legacy that continues to change lives today. The Atlanta studio was buzzing with excitement as 2 families prepared to compete on Family Feud. The Mitchell family had driven 12 hours from rural Mississippi, their first time ever on a game show, their first time ever in a television studio. Sandra Mitchell, 34 years old, stood with her 3 children and her sister trying to contain her nervousness. This was supposed to be fun, a chance to win some money, maybe pay off some bills, give her kids a memory they'd never forget. But Sandra was fighting battles that no one could see. She'd been working 3 jobs for 2 years, cleaning offices at night, stocking shelves at dawn, and watching kids in the afternoon. Her ex-husband had disappeared, leaving her with $40,000 in debt and 3 children to raise alone. She hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night in months. "Mama, you okay?" asked her 10-year-old son Marcus, noticing her hands shaking. "I'm fine, baby, just excited," Sandra lied, forcing a smile. The truth was Sandra had barely eaten in 2 days. Every dollar went to feeding her children, keeping the lights on, and making minimum payments on credit cards that never seemed to get smaller. She'd fainted twice in the past month but hadn't told anyone. She couldn't afford to miss work, couldn't afford to seem weak. When the Family Feud theme music started and Steve Harvey took the stage, Sandra tried to focus. This was their chance. If they could win, even a few thousand would change everything. "Survey says," Steve announced as the Mitchell family celebrated getting the #1 answer. Sandra felt a surge of hope. They were doing well. Maybe they actually had a chance. But as the game continued, Sandra felt the studio lights getting brighter, the room getting warmer. Her vision started to blur. She gripped the podium, trying to steady herself. "Sandra, you're up," Steve called out cheerfully. "We need an answer for things that make you smile." Sandra looked at the board, then at her children's faces in the audience. "My kids," she whispered, but her voice was too weak to reach the microphone. "I'm sorry, I didn't hear that," Steve said, walking closer. Sandra tried to speak louder, but instead of words, everything went black. She collapsed right there on the stage, in front of the cameras, the audience, and millions of future viewers. The last thing she remembered was hitting the floor and whispering, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." When Sandra opened her eyes, Steve Harvey was kneeling beside her on the stage, his hand on her shoulder, his voice gentle and concerned. "Hey there, you're going to be okay," he said softly. "Don't apologize. You don't have anything to be sorry about." The studio medics rushed onto the stage, but Steve didn't move away. While the producers worried about the filming schedule and the audience whispered in concern, Steve stayed right there with Sandra. "Can you tell me your name?" the medic asked. "Sandra Mitchell," she replied weakly. "I'm so embarrassed. I ruined your show." Steve looked at her with eyes full of compassion. "Sandra, you didn't ruin anything, but I want to know. When's the last time you had something to eat?" Sandra's face flushed with shame. "Yesterday morning. And before that, I don't remember." Steve felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't just exhaustion or stage fright. This was a woman fighting for survival. As the paramedics prepared to take Sandra to the hospital, Steve made a decision that would surprise everyone, including himself. "I'm going with her," he announced to his producer. "Steve, we have another family to tape with. Then tape it tomorrow. This is more important." Steve climbed into the ambulance with Sandra and her children, holding her hand as they rode to the hospital. During that 20-minute ride, Sandra told him everything: the 3 jobs, the debt, the sleepless nights, the constant fear of losing her home. "Why didn't you tell someone you were struggling?" Steve asked gently. "Who was I going to tell? And what could they do? I just have to keep working, keep fighting. My kids depend on me." Steve was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that would change both their lives. "You don't have to fight alone anymore." At the hospital, doctors confirmed what Steve already suspected. Sandra was severely malnourished and exhausted. She'd been living on coffee and willpower for weeks. While Sandra rested, Steve sat with her children in the waiting room. Marcus, her oldest, was trying to be brave, but Steve could see the fear in his eyes. "Is Mama going to be okay?" asked 8-year-old Destiny. "She's going to be more than okay," Steve promised. "I'm going to make sure of that." The next morning, Steve returned to the hospital with breakfast for the entire family and a plan that would change their lives. "Sandra, I want to help you," he said, as she ate her first full meal in days. "Not because I feel sorry for you, but because I recognize something in you that I saw in my own mama when I was growing up. Mr. Harvey, I can't accept charity. This isn't charity. This is family taking care of family, and you became family the moment you trusted me enough to tell me your story." Steve's first step was immediate relief. He paid off Sandra's debt, all $40,000 of it, but he didn't stop there. "I don't want to just solve your problems," Steve explained as they sat in his office a week later. "I want to help you build a life where these problems can't happen again." Steve enrolled Sandra in a business management course at a local community college, covering all the costs. He connected her with a financial advisor who taught her about budgeting, saving, and investing. Most importantly, he helped her see that her struggles didn't define her. Her resilience did. "You've been surviving," Steve told her. "Now I want to teach you how to thrive." But Steve's support went beyond money and education. He became a mentor, a father figure, and a constant source of encouragement. He called Sandra every week, checking on her progress, celebrating her victories, and helping her navigate challenges. "Some days I still can't believe this is real," Sandra confided during one of their calls 6 months later. "I keep waiting to wake up and find out it was all a dream." "It's not a dream, Sandra. This is what your life looks like when someone believes in you. But more importantly, it's what happens when you start believing in yourself." As Sandra's confidence grew, she began to dream bigger. She'd always been good at organizing and managing, skills she'd developed while juggling multiple jobs and raising 3 children alone. "I've been thinking about starting a house cleaning business," she told Steve during one of their monthly dinners. "I know it sounds small." "It doesn't sound small at all," Steve interrupted. "It sounds like freedom. It sounds like you taking control of your future." Steve helped Sandra develop a business plan, connected her with other entrepreneurs, and provided the startup capital she needed. In September 2018, 18 months after collapsing on the Family Feud stage, Sandra launched Mitchell's Cleaning Services. Her first client was Steve Harvey's production company. "I want to be your first customer," Steve had insisted. "Not because I'm doing you a favor, but because I know you'll do incredible work." Sandra's attention to detail, work ethic, and genuine care for her clients quickly earned her a reputation for excellence. Word spread throughout Atlanta's business community about the cleaning service that treated every client like family. By 2020, Sandra's business had grown to employ 12 people, all single mothers she'd personally trained and mentored. She offered them flexible schedules, fair wages, and the kind of support she'd once desperately needed. "Every woman I hire I see myself in," Sandra explained to a local reporter. "I remember what it felt like to work 3 jobs and still not be able to pay the bills. I remember the shame, the exhaustion, the fear. I want to make sure no woman has to go through that alone." Sandra's success caught Steve's attention in a new way. During one of their regular check-ins, he shared an idea that had been growing in his mind. "I want you to help me start something," he said. "A foundation that helps single mothers start their own businesses. You've proven it works. Now let's help it work for hundreds of other women." The Second Chance Sisters Foundation launched in 2021 with Sandra as its director. The foundation provides business training, startup capital, and ongoing mentorship for single mothers who want to become entrepreneurs. In its first 2 years, the foundation helped launch over 150 small businesses across the Southeast. Sandra's transformation had a profound impact on her children, who watched their mother evolve from a woman who could barely keep her head above water to a successful businesswoman who was helping others do the same. Marcus, now 16, started working part-time for his mother's company while maintaining straight A's in school. He's already been accepted to 3 colleges and plans to study business. "My mom taught me that falling down isn't failure," Marcus said during his high school graduation speech. "Staying down is failure. My mom got back up and she taught me to do the same." Destiny, now 14, started a nonprofit organization at her school that collects food and supplies for families in crisis. She calls it No More Empty Fridges. inspired by her memories of the days when their own refrigerator was bare. Even 6-year-old Isaiah, who was too young to fully understand what happened that day on Family Feud, has been shaped by his mother's journey. He volunteers at the Foundation's events, helping serve meals and sort donations. "I want to help people like Mama helps people," he says with the earnest conviction of a child who's watched love in action. In 2024, Sandra returned to the Family Feud stage, not as a contestant, but as Steve's special guest during an episode dedicated to celebrating entrepreneurship and second chances. 7 years ago, a woman named Sandra Mitchell collapsed on this very stage, Steve told the audience and viewers. She was a single mother working 3 jobs, barely surviving, fighting battles nobody could see. Sandra stood beside him, confident and radiant, a completely different woman from the one who had fallen to the floor in 2017. Today, Sandra owns a successful business that employs 12 people. She runs a foundation that has helped 150 single mothers start their own businesses. She's raised 3 incredible children who are making their own difference in the world. Steve paused, his voice filled with emotion. But the most important thing Sandra did was prove that our worst moments don't define our future. Our response to those moments does. The audience gave Sandra a standing ovation, but she was thinking about something else. The single mothers in the audience who might be fighting their own invisible battles, wondering if anyone would catch them if they fell. After the show, Sandra met with several audience members who approached her with their own struggles. She listened, offered encouragement, and connected them with resources through the foundation. This is why it all happened, she realized as she drove home that night. Not just so I could be saved, but so I could help save others. Today, Sandra Mitchell's story is used in business schools as a case study in resilience and social entrepreneurship. Her cleaning service has expanded to 3 cities, and the Second Chance Sisters Foundation has helped launch over 400 businesses. But Sandra measures her success differently than most people might expect. Success isn't about the money I make or the awards I win, she reflects from her office, where she keeps a photo of herself from that day on Family Feud. Not the collapse, but the moment Steve helped her to her feet. Success is about the women who call me at midnight because they're scared and need to talk to someone who understands. It's about the children who now have stable homes because their mothers have stable businesses. It's about proving that one moment of compassion can change everything. Steve Harvey still calls Sandra every month. Their conversations have evolved from mentor and student to true friendship, built on mutual respect and shared commitment to helping others. "People always ask me about my favorite Family Feud moments," Steve said during a recent interview. "They expect me to talk about funny answers or big wins, but my favorite moment was when Sandra Mitchell fell down, because that's when I learned what it really means to lift someone up." Sandra Mitchell collapsed on a television stage because she was carrying more weight than any person should have to bear alone. But when Steve Harvey knelt beside her and promised, "You're going to be okay," he was making a commitment that would extend far beyond that moment. 7 years later, Sandra's story has become a testament to the power of genuine compassion and sustained support. It proves that helping someone up from their lowest point isn't just about the immediate rescue. It's about walking alongside them as they rebuild their entire life. The Second Chance Sisters Foundation continues to grow, funded by Sandra's business success and Steve's ongoing commitment. Every month, new single mothers join the program, learning that their current circumstances don't determine their future possibilities. When Sandra speaks to new participants in the Foundation's program, she always ends with the same message. "I want you to remember that your worst day doesn't write the story of your life. It might be the first chapter, but you get to write all the chapters that come after, and you don't have to write them alone." The Family Feud stage where Sandra collapsed now represents something different in her mind. Not a place of failure and embarrassment, but the spot where she learned that sometimes falling down is just the first step to rising higher than you ever imagined possible. And sometimes the most important thing that can happen to you is finding someone who will catch you when you fall and then spend years helping you learn to fly.